Derbyites, we are back once again for more Slugfest entertainment about the Emmys coming up. We're super excited. Voting has finished, and I'm here with three of the best in the biz, Tony Ruiz, Matt Noble, and Charlie Bright. We're going to start off with talking about the limited movie categories and also the variety categories. And we're going to talk about what we think will win and why, and perhaps maybe a spoiler or two if we feel like it. So guys, first of all, look, I was just assuming that we would all be on the same page about limited series. Let's start with a big one. It's one of the most important categories of the night. And as far as I'm concerned, I thought, White Lotus is winning that in a heartbeat. That's my view. But maybe I'm not necessarily on the right path. What do you think, Charles? Are you suggesting that maybe I should be rethinking my choice?
I've been talking with my consultant here, and we don't think that White Lotus is a sure thing for limited series. I actually have Dopesick taking the prize right now. It feels like a bit more of your traditional winner. White Lotus is also very divisive, I've noticed, and while it was loved enough to get these nominations, the question is, can it get the win? And I'm a little skeptical of that, at least in the limited series category.
Curious as to why you think the White Lotus is divisive. Like, what led you to that conclusion?
Usually, you can find sort of like a consensus about things from not just schlubs like us, but also people that in your lives, and also reading reviews of things. And White Lotus was much more divisive, and and while there are people who love it, like you, like I know you did, who are very enthusiastic about it, when it gets to, with some people, there's just indifference. And I think that Dopesick is the one that is much more captivating. It's much more not captivating, but it invokes a more raw emotions, and that's why I think that's why I think it's gonna pull it out.
Well, who are we to argue with Kitty? First of all, Princess Caroline.
Right.
Tony, speaking of divisive, you're not really a fan of White Lotus, and I'm wondering what you think will win limited series.
Look, I think that White Lotus is definitely, I have White Lotus in number 2 right now, because it's hard to argue with the level of support that it got. But when we're talking about, a general category winner, a series category winner, I don't know that White Lotus is the one that everybody's going to coalesce around. I feel like Dopesick is more the traditional. It also feels more important. It has more of an empathy thing going for it with, its focus on the opioid crisis. When you put the two together of, a bunch of, spoiled rich people acting horrible versus something in Dopesick, which is more about something that's legitimately affecting so many people. Dopesick has more of, I think, a relevancy than White Lotus does. I still think White Lotus could win. Like I said, I have it number 2. I'm not discounting it at all, but I feel like there's enough factors to make Dopesick kind of the more palatable winner for a larger voting block. It's probably, I have it currently not just winning limited series, but I have it winning actor. I have it winning directing. It showed up everywhere it needed to show up. So people were equally as infatuated with Dopesick as they were with White Lotus. So with those factors put together, I'm just going to basically go with the one that feels the more important and the more relevant.
So Matt, you said that you have Dopesick winning the directing award. I have it winning the writing award.
But yeah, I have one, and I have it just the opposite. Yeah.
I think for now I have White Lotus winning writing and directing and limited series. Matt, I know that you're probably more on the White Lotus page. What do you think will win limited series then?
Yeah, look, so I think being about the opioid epidemic, that does give a relevance and a power to Dopesick, and I think if it wins, like, that'll be a big part of why. But these guys, like, there's 7 supporting actor nominations for the White Lotus. It picked up nominations it had no business picking up, in a sense. Not to take away from those performances, which are great. The actors love this show. It got, writing, directing. It has the most nominations of limited series. I just think, also, I think with this show, with the White Lotus, it's something that's different. We haven't seen a show like this with this tone. There's something that feels like new about this. And I think, I always feel like it's similar to last year, even though they're very different shows and subject matters, when we had the Queen's Gambit up against Mayor of Easttown in the limited series category, where we had Mayor of Easttown, which was fit the mold in terms of cast and pedigree and everything of a best limited series winner. But the Queen's Gambit won, I think, in part because it was just so different and eclectic from other shows that had been seen before. It was able to do things that other shows weren't. And when I was watching White Lotus, I'm like, boy, the tone of this show, the dark comedy and the drama and the world it's created and the way it's all come together is just different than anything else I'm watching on TV at the moment. And I think the fact that it's gotten so many nominations, it's resonated with voters. And I just don't see how you go past that and the number of nominations it has in terms of seeing it as the winner. It feels like the kind of thing people are going to want to go, now, White Lotus, that's something different than anything we've seen before. We're going to vote for it to win limited series. I'd say the fact there's a season 2 coming, I wonder if that takes a bit of an edge off it, where people go, oh, maybe there'll be another chance to reward it, where that wasn't the case with something like a Queen's Gambit. So there are some differences. But, also it's on HBO. It's got pedigree behind it. It's got prestige. It's a prestige sort of show, the White Lotus. The Dopesick's got prestige too. So I just think that White Lotus is a comfortable front runner. I could see it lose directing, probably maybe even more so than writing, just because I feel like often stuff that have a bit more of a comedic bent sometimes do a bit better in the writing categories. But that being said, I think you'd be safe money to tip it winning both, because we've seen sweeps be so common in recent years.
Yeah. That's very true. In fact, with directing, I wouldn't mind seeing Danny Strong take that out. But I think you've all made really good arguments. I feel like White Lotus to me feels like Watchmen 2 years ago and Queen's Gambit last year, that it's just what they really seem to resonate with the most. Dopesick absolutely is right there, right behind it as a possible spoiler, and not even a spoiler because it's done very well, as Charlie and Tony have mentioned, that it's all over the shop as well, and has all the nominations.
I'd throw in there also just to, I understand what Matt was saying about the 7 supporting nominations, but in the acting categories, Dopesick has 6 acting nominations, which is I think a lot better than most of us thought it was going to do. Yeah. So I think it's got that bit of a wow, it's like I don't think many people had Will Poulter getting in. I don't think many people had Peter Sarsgaard getting in. Mayor Winningham was on the bubble for a lot of people, but they all got in, and I think that I think that adds to the fact that this is really more competitive than I think a lot of people are thinking.
Yeah,
these are the 2 shows.
Yeah. Definitely.
Like, these are the 2 miniseries.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point, Charlie. I think a lot of people were so surprised by the White Lotus actors, so many of them getting in, that it's made a lot of us think, wow, this show is really popular.
Or they really
I was less surprised about the Dopesick stuff. I was like, if that had happened, I'd be like, yeah, no worries. But if someone had said to me, Natasha Rothwell, Sydney Sweeney, and like Jake Lacey and Steve Zahn, I'd be like, no way, that's not happening. And it did. And I'm so happy that it did. But, so that's...
It did get a bit murky. And this is where it gets a bit murky. Sydney Sweeney, is that because they love White Lotus so much, or Euphoria love coming in there? So just to argue against myself a bit, there's a lot of factors in these races.
Yeah, the bottom line, I think, is that this race is so close that to say that one is a definitive front runner over the other, I think I don't think that that's an accurate thing to say. I don't think either one of them is definitive. I really do think it's like a razor's edge between the two of them.
And how exciting. That's great.
And I think that's great. And I think about last year, there were a lot of races that Mare of Easttown won that I thought Queen's Gambit would win. And I think there was a lot of us that were thinking, oh geez, wow, I wonder if Mare of Easttown is going to win limited series, and then Queen's Gambit did.
That's right.
So
I mean, and I was even holding out hope that One Division might have won something. And
I don't think that until that limited series envelope is open, I don't think any of the winners leading up to it are going to tell us one way or the other, because it can go any way. I think it's that close.
Yeah, I think if one show wins writing and directing, that could be telling.
Yeah, for example, if The Dropout suddenly happens to do both, and I know that's very popular as well. It didn't do so well in nomination totals, but I mean, yeah, the writing and directing will certainly be telling. So,
and I think if either Caitlin Dever or Mare Whittingham prevail over Jennifer Coolidge, who is thought to be one of the safer bets for the night of the ceremony. That could be telling.
Oh, definitely. Let's stick with supporting actress and supporting actor. I think Murray Bartlett and Jennifer Coolidge seem to be the favorites there. Most people are predicting them, rightly so. I would like to know from you guys actually what you think. Who you think the most likely spoiler would be in those two categories? What about you, Charlie? Seeing as you were just talking, what do you think for the two supportings?
So for supporting actress, my number 2 is Caitlin Dever for Dopesick. It's very raw, emotional. You see her go from completely sober and also closeted and starting and then having her work injury, and then becoming an addict to the point of going to the seedy places to score drugs and meeting an immensely tragic end. I think that's going to be very, very powerful for a lot of people.
What about you, Tony?
Yeah, I have Dever in second, and I think that Coolidge is really vulnerable. We talk about vote splitting, and there's all sorts of different theories about whether vote splitting is a thing or whether it's not a thing.
It's a thing when it is, and it's not when it's not.
Exactly. I think the thing that hurts Coolidge, I still have Coolidge predicted, but I think the thing that hurts her is the fact that there are so many White Lotus people in here. If maybe two, if 2 or 3 were in there, I think I would still give the edge to Coolidge. But Dever, everything that Charlie just said, she has this arc that is so tragic, that is so heartbreaking. Whereas I think Coolidge, is a legitimate comedy legend. We all acknowledge this. And even in that role does, go to depths that I don't think we've seen her go as an actor before, because that character is ridiculous at first, and then you ultimately learn that character, that Jennifer Coolidge's character, is quite tragic. But she has all these other White Lotus people to compete with, and on top of that, Dever has just a storyline that just you'd be made of you'd have to be made of stone to not. And she plays it so beautifully. I still have Coolidge out front, but I'm not sure I'm going to stay there. I think there's a real possibility that Dever could upset here. And
Matt, what about you?
Yeah, definitely Dever. I think it's a two-horse race in this field. It will be White Lotus or Dopesick that wins this category, because there's two Dopesick actresses and 5 White Lotus actresses. I think in the case of Diva and Coolidge is that they will absorb so much of their show's support. I don't think many people will be going there winning them over Diva, and I don't think many people will be going for the other 4 women over Jennifer Coolidge. So I think in both of their cases, vote splitting is not going to be as big of a factor in other categories when you're not really sure. And I think, similar.
Yeah, I
reasons
actually, the funny thing is I actually think that in supporting actor, I think Murray Bartlett is much safer because of those guys. His character, you know, has this complete kind of arc in a way that, and none of the other characters really have the arc that can compete with Deaver, the way Deaver can compete with Coolidge.
Yeah.
When you have a category with 7 people, the vote splitting could come into effect a lot more because you have a lot narrower margin in terms of who gets the most votes. So, again, it's just going to be weird.
I think what also helps Murray Bartlett a lot is I think in that category, there is like a bigger chance the Dopesick guys could split their votes as well. Because I think there isn't an as obvious front runner from that show as there is with Murray Bartlett in the White Lotus, Jennifer Coolidge in the White Lotus, or Diva in Dopesick, who I think will clearly, be the main beneficiaries of their shows. And I think Bartlett is probably in a safer position than Coolidge because he doesn't have that necessarily lock key competitor. It's not a 2-horse race as much.
I've been consulting with my consultant, Ari. He believes that Murray Bartlett and Jennifer Coolidge are totally safe. So thanks, Ari, for your opinion, but you can go now. I'm not overthinking those two. I think the Murray Bartlett and Jennifer Coolidge have that in the bag, and we're moving on because we're running out of time. We
didn't talk about supporting actor. I have Seth Rogen at number 2.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, same.
I as well, but I'm thinking maybe Peter Sarsgaard.
Yeah, I'm really glad Seth Rogen was nominated actually, and it wasn't just complete Dopesick and White Lotus in both supporting categories, because he was really good in Pam and Tommy. Speaking of Pam and Tommy, if it's going to win anywhere, it's probably going to win lead actress. I still believe that Amanda Seyfried will win for The Dropout. That's my opinion. I just feel like there's a lot of real respect and admiration for the way that she was able to inhabit and perform this Elizabeth Holmes character, which is not an easy thing to do with that voice and with her psychology. But of course, I mean, Pam and Tommy, you really can't go past that performance as Pam Anderson. I just feel like a lot of that was to do with her makeup and costume as well. That's just how I see it. And so that's why I think it's a really close race, but I'm going with Amanda Seyfried. Does anyone else agree that Amanda Seyfried's probably out front, or do you all think that it's a much closer race? Who'd like to go?
I'm with you. It's close, but I'm with you.
Yeah.
Much closer race. It's tough because when you look at both of those, like Dropout got less nominations, but it did well in those above the line categories. Like it's in for writing and directing, as opposed to Pam and Tommy, which is not in either. But Pam and Tommy actually did much better than a lot of us were expecting, and has more nominations. And you would think, okay, if they're going to reward it somewhere, where would it be? And like you said, this is the most obvious place to do it. It's so tough. I have a feeling I might be switching in the next week or two back to Seyfried. But right now I'm willing to still stick my neck out for Lily James.
Yeah, I am too.
Yeah. I thought you would. I know that
there's something really amazing about that performance that I think makes it stand out above the other ones, because on paper that performance shouldn't work, and it's a sheer testament to Lily James that a performance that could have easily fallen into caricature is so nuanced and so wonderfully that is it's so beautifully done, and has a depth that I don't think anybody thought was going to be coming from it. And we've been surprised. There's been surprises in the lead actress category before. 2 words, Regina King.
Yeah.
Which one?
Right.
And they really love her, and that they were great surprises. I just want to give props to that category. It's such a strong category. Toni Collette for me was the absolute standout from the staircase, and I'm so happy she was nominated. Margaret Qualley, beautiful in Maid. Sarah Paulson, I just thought was stunning in Impeachment. And then Julia Garner, I did not enjoy Inventing Anna. I really did not like it, but I thought she was captivating. So, I mean, and even the men.
And the funny thing, I think, is that if Maid, which was for a lot of people was an early front runner, I think if Maid had gotten in to a few other categories, didn't even necessarily need to get as much love, but if it only got into maybe 2 or 3 other categories, I think Quali would be in a much better position to win.
Absolutely.
And look, don't sleep on Quali, because she like these are just actors voting for actors, so some of the other branches that didn't endorse Maid to the same degree will not be weighing in on this category. And as Tony said, she was at one point a front runner in this race, and maybe the fact it is the sort of only place where sort of Maid will be appearing sort of on the ballots for a lot of voters might be like, oh yeah, she was the show. She was
so damn good in Maid. Wow. And speaking of wow, like even the men, Sebastian Stan and Andrew Garfield, great. Colin Firth, incredible. Himesh Patel just broke my heart in Station 11. And then Oscar Isaac, who was so good in Scenes from a Marriage. And of course, a lot of people will also remember that he was phenomenal in Moon Knight. So, but that brings me to Michael Keaton. It feels like of all the categories in the limited races, it feels like lead actor is probably the most certain, even with the Coolidge Bartlett phenomenon. I feel like Michael Keaton is winning this. Do you all agree with that?
Completely.
Yeah.
Because it's the. Oh no, I was
yeah,
no,
you go, Charlie.
Yeah, because it's the Emmys. Whenever we feel like something is insanely safe and certain, it's always the thing that comes back to bite us in the ass and bite us in our asses in the post show. But yeah, I think Keaton, and I think the industry is eager to give Keaton something for his individual performance, as opposed to the 3 ensemble awards that he's won in SAG.
Yeah,
and he's been killing it at every place where he's won. He's given really great speeches. He's really just, for a man who can sometimes be thought of as rather prickly, he has really shown up for this and been completely charming. I just think it's going to be a love letter to him at this point.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Well, for nominations, we've seen. Sorry, I'm just going to say for nominations, we've seen real love for Dopesick, White Lotus, and this is the one category where they're not going head to head. So he's got sort of a clear path without having to go against that other Emmy favorite show.
That's a really good point. I totally agree with that too. We really do have to move on. We're running out of time. I think in the even reality, I think really those 3 variety reality categories that are being presented on the big night, it's RuPaul, Drag Race, John Oliver, and Saturday Night Live. I mean, I can't imagine there's really much more discussion to be had. Unless Matt, what do you think? Like, I mean, do we even bother? I think they're pretty.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with you. I'd say if any of those 3 maybe lost, maybe it'd be SNL to the Black Lady Sketch Show, just because you do have a clear 2 shows. Like there is only one option, and there are some. It's really Black Lady Sketch Show is such a different show from SNL in a lot of ways, so there isn't a clear contrast there. So, if I had to say one upsets, to say that one. Because there is that clear alternate. But
I agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Because it seems like Saturday Night Live, their nomination toll has been going down for the past several years. Seems like it's been going down every year. So I think it's entering, because Saturday Night Live has always been one of those shows that has. There are years where there's a period of several years where it does really well, and then it's more, just okay, it's getting nominated here and there, but it's not really winning. And it feels like this might be the year where it doesn't win this one.
I'm going to be contentious here. I actually don't think that Saturday Night Live is the vulnerable one. I think the one that's the most vulnerable is RuPaul's Drag Race. I think look out for Lizzo.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine that happening. But okay, that's fair enough. I won't. Yeah. Okay. That's very interesting that you would have gone with Lizzo as opposed to perhaps.
I'm not predicting it, but I think it's, you see that name because Lizzo's name is in the title.
Yeah.
Who is pretty much the most powerful person in, outside of Beyonce and whatever, and Harry Styles, who's the most powerful person right now and who's out front in pop culture? Lizzo is.
Yeah.
Never underestimate that.
True. Well, that will be something to watch. Absolutely. Well, I think we might leave it there, guys, and come back and do a couple more Slugfest. Everybody, make sure you stay tuned to Gold Derby. This is obviously where all the action is anytime. We take this stuff really seriously. We need to get out more. But apart from that, please stick around. Make sure you're making your predictions. You've got to keep those updated because, everyone from Hollywood and across the world are watching and waiting to see who we're predicting and why. So thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.